Okay. Well, I guess John didn't have to do that. I guess when John came in, somehow he replaced me as the host. So welcome everybody. This is the My Solar Story. It's Thursday night, and these Thursday evening presentations are sponsored by GLREA in the Michigan Solar Users Network. Tonight we have Thasin Sardar from the Islamic Center of East Lansing talking about their solar installation and what motivated them to get started, some of the issues they had, and some of their future plans. And so please mute yourself during the presentation. And after the presentation, we will stop the screen sharing so everybody can be seen. And if you want to ask a question at that time, just unmute yourself and ask the question directly. So with that, go ahead and tell your story.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, John, and thank you to GLREA for this opportunity to share our story, how we went solar, what was our motivation, and what challenges we faced. I wish we could do this in person, particularly on a beautiful October surprise day, I should say. It was 65 this afternoon. I went out for a jog. It was a beautiful day. That also means we had plenty of sun. That means we could tap into a lot of energy. I would like to start off by introducing who the Islamic Center is and what we do in terms of promoting greening efforts in our community and who we serve. The Islamic Center of East Lansing was founded in 1979, and it's a non-profit organization. We practice Islam, and we cater to the needs, spiritual needs of the Muslim community in the greater Lansing area. We are located at 920 South Harrison, right in the heart of MS campus. We have to constantly encourage our community members, our own members of our own community, as well as anybody else outside, to constantly remind ourselves about the need to care for our environment. At a time when we have some reckless leaders who are defying science, it's all the more important that we redouble our efforts. So we have tried to do our share to promote environmental awareness in our community. And we have recycling efforts underway at the Islamic Center, as well as at the school, which is an adjacent building to the Islamic Center. And we try to do to the best extent possible. Certainly we could do better. And also during the month of Ramadan, we practice, in order to promote the spirit of recycling and caring for our environment, we practice what we themed as zero waste Ramadan, because we do use a lot of styrofoam, unfortunately, but because of the volume of people who attend the community dinners, that is what we end up using. But in order that it doesn't go to the landfill, we practice what's known as zero waste, which I'll get to in a second. And I will also be talking about the main part of this presentation, which is the solar panels that we installed. So coming back to what we do during the month of Ramadan, all 30 days of this month, we call it a zero waste, wherein we try to collect the food waste in a separate bin, and we collect the styrofoam plates, cups separately, and we recycle them by taking them to DART containers, the styrofoam. The food waste itself, we try to compost it so that it goes and supplies to the gardens in the greater Lansing area. We took our kids to a place called Katie's Composting. They are no longer in business, but they served us beautifully for a couple of years. The kids really loved it to learn about composting. And yeah, they're actually holding the worms out there, which are totally harmless. So we try to convert the food waste into manure, and that feeds the plants in the greater Lansing area gardens to produce more food. Coming to the main theme that we are talking about today's presentation, it is our solar array that we have installed. I call it phase one because you see the plenty of real estate on our flat roof here. My goal is to fill in all this area with more panels. So this is our first attempt to install this, and I'm calling it phase 1. It's a 10.24 kilowatt system that we have installed, and it is operational at this point. It did take quite some time to get it going, more so because of there's a wait time to place the order, to get the people to come and work. And then unfortunately, we had the shutdown, the lockdown that happened, that also delayed the installation for us this year. Nevertheless, we've been operational since May, and we've been tapping into the sun. In terms of the specs, like I said, it's a 10.24 kilowatt system with the goal of producing annually about 12 megawatt hours of energy. The solar panels that we use are Silfab 320 watt panels. They're all black. They look beautiful. And the inverter that we use is the Solar Edge inverter with online monitoring capability. And the type of racking that we use is the ballast mount, which I'll get to in a second. And we have warranty for the entire installation, 25 years for the materials and workmanship. The quote that we obtained included running all the wires, the conduit from the rooftop all the way down to the inverter and at the lower level, all the disconnects that we had to do and work with the consumer's energy, the rooftop box, the grounding, and the app that goes for monitoring the system. The layout is, we have 2 arrays that you saw in the picture with 16 modules in each array, making it 32 modules in all. And the code, of course, included the design installation, the required permits to work with consumers' energy, the city, and the shipping and handling for it as well. One of the things that they provided as part of the quote was the shade report. We are facing the sun all the time when it is up out there. So it's almost 100% sun. So we are best equipped to exploit the sun to the best possible extent. So that's why I'd like to get as many panels as possible and make the best use of the available real estate there. That's a look of the ballast that's holding the panels. The maker is Iron Ridge. The type of racking is called the ballast mount. It's made of reinforced glass composite material, which means it is corrosion free for its entire life. And it's also guaranteed to withstand a good amount of pressure. Here's a close-up of what that ballast mount looks like. They are held in place with concrete slabs, small stones, so to speak. And the company that installed it for us painted it black so that it all looks beautiful. I personally like it when I look at it. That's why I keep repeating this. It's completely black. The rack is black. The stones have been painted black. The panels are black, and it looks nice. The Silfab modules are made in North America. They do have an operation in Canada as well. So that's why they brand themselves as made in North America, and they don't exactly say made in the USA. They do have operations here in the US as well, but certainly it is not outside the North American hemisphere where these are made. We are using the monocrystalline modules, and that's the website that you see there, silfabsolar.com, from where these panels were procured by the vendor who installed it for us. We also use optimizers for each of the panels. I can get into the more details of how this helps in the Q&A if anyone has questions. I would strongly recommend going with this. Of course, there are pros and cons, which I will defer to John to answer if there are more detailed questions about it. And the inverter that we use is made by Solar Edge. As they say, if anything can go wrong in a solar installation, it's the inverter, because it's converting from DC to AC all the time when the sun is when the solar energy is being converted. And full disclosure, we did have a failure already, but it's covered by the warranty, and the vendor is working on replacing it. It does have an app with which you can monitor the performance. It helps us monitor each of the arrays, how much energy it's producing. And if any of the arrays are acting up, then we get a chance to see it in the app and then go and take corrective action. I'll get into that in a second. So that's the app here that you see, a screenshot of it. It's available both for iPhone as well as Android. There are different views in the app where you can see different layouts, either the singular array or the entire array as a whole, or how the energy is being produced on any given day, which is either you can see it monthly, or you can drill down into per week level, or at every single day level. And you can also see it for the entire year. So here are 3 screen grabs that I put in one slide here. What you see at the bottom here in the bottom left corner is sort of the header section of this module, where you can select what kind of view you want to see. And if you can get, this is the monthly production that you see here. And then if you drill down into the month, then you can see on any given day how much energy you're producing. So far, that's how much of carbon emission that we've saved, 10,000 pounds, which is equivalent to 76 trees. Guaranteed none of us would have planted this many trees. So this is easy way for us to be planting trees, so to speak, by not actually cutting them down, by tapping into this renewable source of energy. To summarize our project cost, this is what it cost us to have this 10.24 kilowatt system. It's a flat rooftop solar array. The bulk of the cost was the material, of course, and the design and installation cost is out there. We had to, the complete cost of the project included pulling the permits, as well as the shipping and handling of the product. One of the things that I promised John was to share with you what motivated us to embark on this project. First and foremost, as people of faith, we are supposed to care for our environment, and our worship leaders pray for it, pray for our earth to be preserved, and encourage us to practice what is being taught in our faith to care for our environment. At the same time, we also had our neighboring faith traditions with whom we've been partnering for a long time on various projects and initiatives. And they have always been there for us during our difficult times. In the last few years, recent few years, so to speak, we've had some hate rallies that have been trumped up by the prevailing political climate. Anytime there was any semblance of any such incident occurring, people in the greater Lansing area have come to our doorsteps and stood by us. Particularly, I'd like to call out the University Lutheran Church, which is next door to us, as well as the Hazlitt Community Church, who have been primary motivators for us to embark on this project. We were motivated by looking at their installation at the Hazlitt Community Church. They invited us to be part of their green team. I've been fortunate to attend their green team meetings and learn a lot from them. So I thought it's important for me to make that mention here and to recognize their contribution to where we are today as well. We also enjoy doing joint projects with the different faith groups. One such thing is the Kids Against Hunger project that we do with the neighboring Lutheran Church. And we also wanted to do a joint project with the Lutheran Church to have a joint panel installed between our 2 property lines, just like how we did a greening project of about almost 15 years ago, where we planted some trees together jointly. Likewise, we wanted to install solar panels and share the project, both in terms of cost and the energy that's being derived from it. But it was not pragmatic for us to do those ground mounts in the available space that we share commonly. So we had to go separately. Thankfully, even the Lutheran Church is now fully solar. They just got their system installed and they're operational at this time. I believe they're just waiting for the permits to be issued. Otherwise, they are ready to flip the button. And I would be glad to offer you more details in an interactive way. I can revisit these slides and we can have a discussion, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. This is also my contact information that's on display here, so you can feel free to reach out to me at any time. I was telling John earlier before we started the presentation that we want this to be infectious. Just like how COVID is infectious, we want going solar to become infectious. We want to spread that around as much as possible, motivate one another, be there for one another. And in that spirit, I am available anytime to answer any of you, any questions that you have, how we went about getting the quotes, how did we select the vendor, and what challenges that we faced as we went through the entire process. I will be open to having you climb up on our roof and watch the installation as well, see the installation for yourself as well. I can share as many pictures, whatever research that I've done, I'll be happy to share that with you, all with the goal of making this as widespread as possible. I think houses of worship are in an ideal position to embark on this project. One of our motivation is to showcase our installation to our community members so that they can see that this is real deal. They can do it on their own rooftops as well. So hopefully they will see this installation and embark on their own projects. That's our goal. With that, I will open up for any questions, either from the audience or John, if you have any specific questions that you want, that I may have missed, feel free to ask me.
Did you mention who your installer was, and could you briefly talk about how that that company was selected?
Sure. I didn't know if that was appropriate, so I did not mention that, but I love them. We went with Absolute Environmental Solutions. It's a local company here in Greater Lansing. I had the pleasure of meeting people from that company during the solar tour that GLREA organizes every year. They were just pleasing individuals to interact with, to talk to, and they were very prompt in coming down and giving us a quote and following up with us and answering any questions that we have. One other reason that we selected them was they are local. Not only are they local, but they are MSU grads. So I felt like we need to support our own in our area and help them succeed as well. And they're doing pretty good in the area. They have quite a few installations at this time. So I'm happy dealing with Absolute Environmental Solutions and happy to serve as a reference for them.
Yeah, and I saw in the chat box, you know, how was the project financed? And you weren't able to take advantage of the federal investment tax credit, were you? Because you're not a private business. But how was the project financed?
The money is fully from the Islamic Center. It was not collected out of donations. We are in the heart of MSU, as I told you. So we do what we, every year during the football and basketball games, we park vehicles of the people who are coming to watch the games. And we set aside that money. And I was able to make the case to our board that, hey, this is money that we collected from sources other than our own deep pockets. So why not we invest this in a renewable energy source? And they were happy to approve of that idea. And that's how I would say it was actually easy for me to get this going in terms of the initial cost. That said, this is just phase one. my goal is to showcase this and solicit more donations going forward, so that we can expand and try to become as self-sufficient as we can.
And what with the existing 10 kilowatt system, what percentage of your power does that provide over the course of a year?
It's a fraction. We have a fairly big-sized building. We also have a school that's attached to the prayer facility. It's an elementary and middle school with 150 students. So at this point, it's a fraction, not even worth mentioning. So the goal is to try and add as many panels as possible so that we can be as self-sufficient as we could.
You know, if anybody would like to ask a question, just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
Okay, I've got a question, couple questions. One is, what's the payback, return on investment for your project you estimate? And then has this been inspiration for members of your community to take it on in their homes? And, you know, as kind of, have you been seeing this idea among your the members of the Islamic community?
Right. So there are two questions. The first one is, we as a nonprofit organization, we don't have the tax benefit. So that puts us at a disadvantage in terms of the payback on the system, as opposed to 9 to 10 years for 8 to 10 years for a residential system. Our return on the investment is going to be 15 to 17 years, perhaps. That said, we are also looking at it as our way to contribute towards the protecting our environment and making sure that carbon emissions are reduced, equivalent to trees being planted. And I look at it as you cannot put a price on that. So even though the return on the investment could be longer than a residential installation, I still feel good about it that we are serving humanity at large in this process. Your second part of the question was, has it motivated people in the community? Yes. Quite a few people have shown interest. For some people, it's news. And when they see this, they are motivated. I've had some few people approach me, and it'll take a while for people to actually get going in terms of doing their own solar installations because of the cost. Nevertheless, when it opens up the dialogue, that itself is a big deal. It helps them to talk about this in a positive way in their places of work or school or in their neighborhoods. That's a big deal. Spreading awareness is a big deal, I feel. And for many people don't even know that how many tax incentives and rebates are available in the community. So when I bring that up to different individuals, it's news to them. So this has offered a place to have a conversation about this and build the awareness. Thank you.
If you have a question, just unmute yourself and ask.
Well, this is more of a comment than a question. That this is in response to your comment that the payback will be, 15 to 17 years. But we all know that most utility electricity keeps going up every year. So as time marches on, you're going to save even more money because at least a portion of your energy consumption is going to be flat, whereas all your neighbors is going to keep going up because of the utility increases. So, you're going to save more money as you move down the road.
I have a question for John Sarver.
Yep.
Have you posted the solar tour yet?
Yes. John Freeman actually has posted the Saturday solar home tour on the YouTube channel. You can go to YouTube and just search for Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, and you'll see the tour from Saturday. I wasn't able to attend. I had to go to a memorial service, but I've only heard positive feedback about the presentations that were done on Saturday. There were, I believe, 16, 15-minute presentations, and so there was a lot of good information shared.
I didn't
Just make
realize.
sure just make sure, Karen, you skip the first 2 minutes because I had problems getting the recording and getting the first video to work. So,
Okay.
but it's all there.
I thought it was going to be on the group's website. I didn't know you just went straight to YouTube.
Well, we have GLREA now because of John Sarver. We have a YouTube channel, which makes it easy to store videos, and then it makes it really easy to share.
Okay.
And we may want to suggest to our guest that his center may want to establish their own YouTube channel and maybe put a video on there, and that will also help to educate people within the community.
Yeah, and as many of you know, all the My Solar Story presentations are also on the YouTube channel. And this one will be, posted probably tomorrow because sometimes people just can't, fit it into their schedule for Thursday evening. But all those presentations are there, and folks are. I know from, we can see how many views there are. It's providing continuing education for folks. One thing that makes the videos very helpful, I think, is the dialogue we're having right now, because all the My Solar Story presentations, as you all know, includes the solar story, but then a lot of questions and give and take, and I think that's very helpful to people. Every Thursday evening, we're getting a lot of good questions. Other questions or comments from folks? Anybody would like to just unmute yourself and ask or make a comment?
I see a question from Dale in the chat. He's asking if we considered PPA financing. Yes, that is in my vision to try that. But we first want to give it a shot to see if we can collect some donations. We'll see how far that goes. And if that doesn't work out, the goal is to try the PPA financing. Thanks to GLREA, I attended a presentation about almost 8 to 10 months ago, I think. There was this co-op from Ann Arbor, I believe, that showcased how they did their PPA financing. And it was very informative. And I look forward to following that model and see if we can extend that to our situation so we can expand it.
And if you need anybody to work with you as you explore potentially that model, feel free to give John or myself a call, and we can work with you on that.
All right, thank you.
Oh, well, let me ask, this is a typical question I always ask. Is there anything that you would do differently, having gone through the experience? Anything that you kind of learned that you would maybe do differently in hindsight?
I would do more homework. Quite frankly, this is gray area to me. I relied on whatever talks that I have been attending, organized by GLREA, and anything that the green teams have been sharing. I've been relying on that information. Not that I was misled on anything, but in this case, I would say, having selected the vendor, I didn't ask them much questions. I just went with whatever they recommended. I did not know the difference between monocrystalline and polycrystalline. Is one better than the other? I went with their recommendations in terms of whether you need a string converter or whether you should use a power optimizer, a string inverter, sorry. So those are things where I would encourage anyone who wants to embark on this journey to do their own research a little more. So that you can make a more informed decision. But Absolute Environment Solutions was just pleasant to deal with. I keep saying that because they were, and so I felt confident that they were making the right choices for me.
Well, and I think there's always an advantage with dealing with a local business if you can. That just makes everything easier. And you kind of know where they live if you have any questions or have follow-up work you needed. I saw in the chat box that there was a question about, did you have to make any modifications to the roof in order for the solar system to be installed?
No. It's a flat roof, and we did not have to make any modifications. And in future, if there's any work that's going to be done on the roof, whether it's an addition of air conditioning unit or any work that might be done, we can always move our installation without having to unscrew anything, pretty much. Because it's the ballast mount, it can be moved around easily. It's not secured with anything other than weight. Those stones that you saw in the picture slide that I showed is what is securing it in place. So it's going to be very easy to move around. We may have to do a disconnect and extend the wire maybe, but the entire installation itself can be moved around easily.
Yeah, there was a question in the chat box about the, you know, when you use an optimizer versus a microinverter. And I'm not sure how to answer that question myself. Is anybody on the Zoom who would be able to kind of address the issue of the advantages of microinverters versus optimizers? Okay, I guess not.
I can have a shot at it based on what.
Okay, go ahead.
The microinverter is, again, I'm not an expert on this. From whatever knowledge I have researched, a microinverter is basically on each of the panels that you have. So there is the added cost of having an inverter per panel, and you're going to feed AC power right from the panel down to your input of your electrical grid. If you're feeding it back to the grid, it's going to that. If you go with a single string inverter, then all the panels are connected together, and you're going to get DC power all the way from your rooftop down to the string inverter that you have downstairs, assuming it's going to be indoor downstairs, and then it's going to be converted from DC to AC. Now, the pros and cons of microinverter versus a string inverter would be, if a single panel fails, then rest of the panels are going to continue producing the energy, and that will help you to remain in business, to convert solar energy to power. But in a string inverter, if one of the panels fails, then since they're all stringed together, you're not going to be producing any electricity. Now, a way of circumventing that issue is to use power optimizers. From what I've read about the product, it enhances the power. Not only does it help in circumventing the problem that I mentioned, which is if a single panel fails, the power optimizer will ensure that rest of the panels are continuing to feed energy, but it also optimizes the power, and the documentation says it enhances the production capacity by 25%. If I muddle the answer, I'll be happy to repeat myself. Otherwise,
No, it's good. It's a good answer.
Yeah.
Hi, I had a comment.
Go ahead.
I'm Judy Kindle, and I am a member of University Lutheran Church. We're next door to the Islamic Center in East Lansing. And as Thasin has mentioned, we've been working together for a couple years with the idea that it would be great for all of us to have solar. This winter, University Lutheran was surprised with a $25,000 check from the Islamic Center to encourage us to do solar. So that was a great motivation. And we now have had solar, 20 kilowatt of solar on our roof, which is up and running for 2 weeks now.
excellent.
So it was a great gift and wonderfully generous, because we also have been thinking about solar for quite a while. Also, 2 families now in our congregation have decided to go with solar on their house. So we are spreading it around. which is great news. And I just wanted to let everyone know that our system is up and running, and we thank the Islamic Center.
Hey, Judy, did you have any issues during your installation at University Lutheran that you want to share? Did everything go pretty smoothly, or?
Yeah, everything went totally smooth, and we went with AES and everything. There weren't any problems. I wasn't as involved in the technical part of it. We had one person in our group, in our earthkeeping group, that has changed all the light bulbs in the whole church to LEDs. And he was the one that followed up on getting this solar done from the inception to the conclusion. But we had a really good experience, and would recommend that company for anyone else.
Well, Judy, you've got a very steep roof there. Did you put the PV array on the roof or on the ground? Because
Yes.
your roof is much steeper than I mean, obviously the Islamic Center's flat roof.
Well, the back of our building is a flat roof,
Okay.
and this is where the installation is. The panels are sitting on a flat roof on the ballasts and look very much like the ones at the Islamic Center. And we were guaranteed that if we needed to do any repairs to our roof, I'm not sure of the exact wording of this agreement, but basically it was that if we needed to do any repairs or change the roof, AES would remove the panels or move them and reinstall them for no cost to us. Because we may have to re-roof that flat area sometime in the next 15 years. We're hoping it's not too soon.
For both of you, were there any issues with either the electrical inspections from the city or the working with Consumers Energy?
The only thing I would say is the time that it takes for the response. I don't know if it was because of the COVID related lockdown or otherwise, but it took a while to get the clearance from consumers. Maybe they were lined up with a lot of pending work because of the lockdown. That could be one reason. With respect to the city inspector did come and check it on a rooftop. Not to underestimate his knowledge, but I think this is new area for him as well. So it was a breeze. If anything, I think he learned something from looking at our system.
Well, you know, with any change, there's always a steep learning curve, whether it's for churches or individuals or people that work for cities, and we're all kind of in it together. And if we have the right attitude, then usually things work out really nicely.
True.
Other comments, questions?
I just have one more, I don't know, comment or thought about this, but I think this is a very exciting project, and see it like seating, it's wonderful, it's uplifting. Interfaith Power and Light has the cool congregations where people can make estimates of how much they're offsetting and saving, not only in energy, but in all kinds of ways. Energy Star has a portfolio management database system where you can track controlling for the climate for your zip code in real time, how much energy you're saving, cost you're saving, how many greenhouse gas offsets you are doing by your project, project month to month. And those are both wonderful opportunities for good news stories. And I think especially for houses of worship, it's wonderful. Have you looked and explored any of those possibilities yet?
Not exactly the way you described, but the app that I talked to you about, the one that I showed you screenshots from, that does show how much energy that we're producing real time. And it also shows how much of carbon emission that we've prevented, which is equivalent to how many trees that we've planted. So yes, those are things that, like you said, I could use to promote in our community and build more awareness. I have not yet started promoting it extensively in our community, but I do want to make that pitch and try and get donations for the next phase from our community members. But I want to do it right. So I've been a little slow at it, but want to do it right.
Well, both of those are no cost. Both of those, avenues, they're no cost. They're just a little bit of a staff time or volunteer time in the case of co-congregation. So
yeah.
I'm just throwing that up there as a Nerf ball.
Sure, I'll check it out.
I like that.
Dale asked Charles for you to enter into the chat box the names of those two programs. Okay, thank you. Anything else? We've got about quarter to 8. We have time for a few more questions if somebody has any, or, if, before we break, for sure, I'd like to thank Thasin for this presentation. This has been wonderful, and it'll be nice to have it on the YouTube channel, so to be available for others to watch too.
Yeah, this is John Freeman. I just want to thank Thasin for the presentation. I absolutely agree with you that places of worship really provide moral leadership in the community. And as more and more people see places of worship putting up solar and doing their part to promote a clean environment and fight climate change, then other people are going to understand that this is the right thing to do. And so I'd really want to compliment the Islamic Center for doing this. I think it's wonderful.
And I'd like to reiterate the point that you made earlier about how this is a steep learning curve. For me, the learning started with the presentation that the open house that Hazlitt Community Church had at their facility. This was about two summers ago. They opened their doors. It was a good turnout. And I really appreciate the persistence of the green team there. Dr. David Arnasti, Rich Baumgartner, whom I see here now attending this presentation, Sally and other members of the green team there, as well as the earth-keeping team at University Lutheran Church. They've all been motivating factors. So we have to learn from one another. We have to motivate one another. And this is a good infection to spread. I want to reiterate that.
Yeah, I want to mention too that, Meridian Township, where I live, had a Go Solarize program a couple years ago, and our best success was working through houses of worship to kind of reach folks, including their membership, of course. And I think one of our best workshops was at the Islamic Center. We had a great turnout. It was a great program, and that's a great way to reach out to communities, that they have nice facilities and can kind of get their membership out to a program. And certainly the Islamic Center, and it was very helpful to Meridian Township when we did our program. Any lasting comments before we kind of adjourn for the evening?
One other thing I would like to add is the comfort level. People, since there's a learning curve involved, people are afraid to start off on this project. Now, maybe Judy or Dale can speak to this point, but when they wanted to start, it really helped them that we were already live, and I was able to share my experience with them personally. So that got them started. I told them what kind of research I did, which are the vendors I went to get a quote. So likewise, if any of your houses of worship are embarking on such a program or have any thoughts about doing so, I will be happy to share my experience, be it virtual or in person. We got to keep this going.
Yeah, there have been studies done on what are the most effective ways of marketing solar, and word of mouth is by far the most effective means for exactly the reasons you just said, Thasin. So thank you.
You know,
Well, thank you everybody for attending, and you know, this has been another very interesting and informative program. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Good night.